Hi guys, welcome. Danny here from the Magic Junk Drawer, and today I just wanted to talk quickly about how I got into astrology. When I was very young, one of my first memories I have is of my grandfather's necklace, the Capricorn. So I inherited this when he passed away because it was something that I always remember him wearing, and I remember sitting on his lap, being very little, and making the Capricorn walk up his neck. So of course I asked him, what is this? And he was like, well, it's the goat. I'm a Capricorn. My grandfather was a typical Capricorn. Worked hard, worked steady. He built a great life for himself and my grandmother. And he retired. He was in his 70s when he retired. That was just my grandfather, a very hard worker, very stable, typical Capricorn. So that was the first that I, oh, you're a Capricorn, what does that mean? Now my mother, you know how mothers usually give their car keys to the kid to hold, to keep the kid quiet? My mother had handed me her car keys, and I remember I was sitting in the basket at Grand Union in the, the shopping cart. I was sitting in the front, and she handed me her keys, and she had a Scorpio keychain. So of course I asked her, well, what is this? And she was like, oh, I'm a Scorpio. Scorpio mom, pretty tough. So it was at that point that I became aware of that we had signs and that we were born under these constellations, very young. And then when my brother was born, of course, the talk was that he was a Gemini, and I was only 3 when he was born. So we're talking, this is going back a long time. Oh, sorry. So as I started to get older and I met friends and I was in school, in elementary school, I was always like, well, what's your sign? And when people were like, well, I don't know what my sign is, I thought it was utterly ridiculous. Like, to me, it was like not knowing what your middle name is. Like, what do you mean you don't know what your sign is? Like, that's nuts. So, of course, I took on learning all of this so I could tell people, oh, you're an Aries or you're a Gemini. And then when people would say to me, well, I'm a Gemini and my sister's a Gemini and we're two totally different people, why is that? I wanted to find out, why is that? How come I could get along with this person and I couldn't get along with that person? So I started going deeper into what astrology was, learning about the different houses and how important your birth time is. Your birth time is important because that's what places the houses, the planets in each house. So for example, I'm Gemini rising, which means that's in my first house. But if I was born 2 hours later, I would be a Cancer rising, which would mean that Cancer would be in my first house. What's the first house? The house of self. It's who you are. It's the face that you show the world. So I come off more like a Gemini than I ever would a Cancer. Had Cancer been in my first house, I would have been a little bit more Cancerian. Cancer-like, whatever. Cancerian? Anyway, so when you start to learn your chart and you start to see, I myself have Saturn in the first house. I mentioned that in one of my last videos. So that kind of stabilizes me, brings me down, keeps me grounded. Saturn rules Capricorn and also Aquarius. Good to co-ruler for Aquarius, but that's the only thing that really brings me down. I don't have any other planets in earth signs. I have 7 planets in air signs, which makes me very air-like. My rising sign is Gemini. I actually have a grand trine in air signs. I have 27 degrees Gemini, Saturn, 27 degrees Uranus in Libra, and 27 degrees Mercury in Aquarius. So it's a grand trine in air signs. Now, somebody else that was born on my birthday 3 years later would have a totally different chart. As a matter of fact, somebody that was just born a couple of hours after me would have a totally different chart because they wouldn't be a Gemini rising. They would be a Leo rising or a Virgo rising. So there's so much goes into it, but as time went on, it really started to intrigue me, and I found that I was proving myself right. Like, I would look at my chart, or I would look at somebody else's chart, and I would say, oh, this person looks like they have a really great connection to me. I wonder what's going to happen with our relationship. Not necessarily a romantic relationship, but it could be a friendship. It could be a business partner. And I was proving myself right. So that's when I started doing charts for other people. And I always, whenever I do someone's chart, I always kind of look and see how it kind of ties into me. Like, what brought this person to me? What kind of connections do we have? Oh, they have, their sun sign is on my Jupiter. Oh, this could be a good luck aspect. We could come up with something fabulous together, you know. I always look at things like that because I believe that everyone is brought to each other for a reason, and we're much stronger when we work together than when we work against each other. So if somebody comes to me and they're looking for, you know, I don't know, a chart, and they want to know why this, and that is happening, if I can help them, you know, I'll give them my advice. And if it's something that I think I can't handle, then I will refer them to somebody who I think can. Because we're all working together. We're all learning all the time. And people make mistakes. And, you know, you got to learn from your mistakes and move on. And it's a constant learning thing with astrology. And I find, too, that when you look back on things, obviously hindsight is always 20/20, but when you look back on things, you'll start to see, oh, this made sense. Like, I had a career change during my Jupiter return, and now I'm doing something that I love and that I'm really good at. Like, it makes sense. Sometimes you don't really see it when it's happening because it doesn't always happen at once. It's not like one day you just wake up and your life is different. It's usually a slow process, and you kind of take steps to get there. So it's very interesting, and reading charts is very interesting because you never know what you're going to see, and like similarities between people and differences. I mean, there are so many similarities between people, and then there are opposite things, and that goes back to the age-old question: like attracts like, or opposites attract? Well, what is it? Well, it depends on the situation, it depends on the person, it depends on the chart. I've known Pisces and Virgos that get along great together. They're opposites, but they work. My father is a Virgo, and sometimes I think he's a little bit more Pisces than I am. A little bit more Pisces than I am. We definitely have a lot of the similar characteristics, but, you know, sometimes the sun highlights what's in the opposing house. So his sun in Virgo could be shining a light on his Pisces, which brings out his creative side, his artistic side, and he's also a Libra rising, which right there makes him creative. And my dad's an artist, so. So that's about it for today, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.